So, I want to have a real conversation with you today. Not the kind that gets filtered through government press releases or Wall Street spin. A real one. Because I've been watching the indicators for a while now, and I have to be honest with you, the signs are everywhere, and they are impossible to ignore at this point. The economy is not doing well. And what's worse is that the people in charge know it. The corporations know it. And deep down, most Americans know it too. They just haven't been told out loud yet. So today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it. Because sitting around and waiting for things to fix themselves is not a strategy. Let's get into it. Let's start with something that almost nobody talks about, but everybody should. Credit card debt. Americans are now carrying over $1.17 trillion in credit card debt. That is a record. Not just a high number, an all-time record. And the average interest rate on that debt is sitting right around 21 to 22%. So people are not just in debt. They are in expensive debt that is growing faster than they can pay it down. You've got families putting groceries on a credit card at 22% interest just to get through the week. Think about what that actually means. You're paying a fifth of your grocery bill again every single year, just in interest. That is not a sustainable situation. That is a slow-motion financial collapse happening inside millions of American households right now. And speaking of groceries, let's talk about what's actually happening at the store because this one hits everybody, regardless of income. The average American family is spending roughly $1,000 to $1,200 a month on groceries right now. That's up somewhere between 25 and 30% compared to just 4 years ago. Meanwhile, wage growth over that same period has averaged somewhere around 4% annually. So your grocery bill went up 30% and your paycheck went up maybe 16% if you were lucky. That gap is where the pain lives. That gap is why people are buying Hamburger Helper again. That gap is why frozen pizza sales are surging. That gap is why higher income shoppers are suddenly showing up at Aldi and Walmart instead of Whole Foods. It's not about preference. It's about survival math. And now, lay tariffs on top of all of this. Because this is something that doesn't get talked about honestly enough. When you put a 25% tariff on imported goods, and we are talking about everything from electronics, to clothing, to car parts, to food products, that cost does not get absorbed by the corporation. It never does. It gets passed directly to you at the register. Every single time. So everything that was already getting more expensive is about to get even more expensive. And the people who feel that the hardest are not the wealthy. It's the middle class and the working class who are already stretched thin. If you're spending 40 or 50% of your income on basic necessities like housing, food, and utilities, a 10 or 15% price increase on everyday goods isn't an inconvenience. It's a crisis. Now let us talk about something that is a real gut punch for a lot of people watching this: small businesses, because the small business sector is one of the most honest economic indicators we have. It doesn't get propped up by government bailouts. It doesn't get covered by Wall Street analysts. It either survives or it doesn't. And right now, it is not surviving at the rate it used to. Small business closures have been accelerating. Foot traffic is down. Consumer spending at local businesses is down. And the cost of running a small business, rent, insurance, payroll, supplies has gone up dramatically while the customer base has pulled back because those customers are broke. So you've got a perfect storm hitting small business owners from both sides at the same time. And when small businesses close, those are real jobs gone. Real community anchors gone. Real families losing their income. This is not an abstract economic statistic. This is your neighborhood. And then there's the immigration piece, which I know is a topic that gets heated fast. But let's just look at it practically from an economic standpoint. A significant portion of the agricultural workforce, the construction workforce, the restaurant and hospitality industry. These are sectors that have been heavily supported by immigrant labor for decades. When you rapidly reduce that labor pool, one of two things happens. Either those industries slow down and production drops, or the cost of labor rises and gets passed to the consumer. Either way, prices go up. Food gets more expensive. construction slows down, which means housing supply tightens even further. And a housing market that is already completely unaffordable for most Americans gets even worse. This isn't a political statement. It's just supply and demand math. Now let's get to the one that I think hits the hardest emotionally. Retirement savings? Because this is where you realize how fragile the whole thing really is. The average American between 55 and 64 has around $185,000 saved for retirement. That sounds like a lot until you realize that at a standard 4% withdrawal rate, that's about $7,400 a year to live on. $7,000 a year on top of Social Security, which averages about $1,900 a month right now. And that Social Security number is not guaranteed to stay where it is. The Social Security Trust Fund is projected to face serious shortfalls within the next decade. The math does not add up for a huge portion of Americans approaching retirement age. And every time the market takes a hit, and it has been taking hits, those retirement accounts that people spent 30 years building take a serious blow that they may not have time to recover from. One bad market year at age 62 is not the same as one bad market year at age 35. The runway is completely different. And here is the thing that connects all of this together: the K-shaped economy. What that means is that the economy is moving in two completely different directions at the same time, depending on where you sit financially. If you're in the top 10 or 20% of earners, things are genuinely okay. Your investments are still producing returns. Your home equity is still there. You can absorb price increases without changing your lifestyle much. But if you're in the bottom half, and that's the majority of Americans, every single one of these things we just talked about is stacking on top of each other simultaneously. Higher groceries, higher utilities, higher debt payments, shrinking retirement accounts, job insecurity, and a housing market that has completely priced you out. That's not just a tough stretch. That's a systemic problem. So what do you actually do? Because I refuse to just leave you with a list of problems and no direction. That's not useful to anyone. First, attack the credit card debt aggressively. I know that sounds obvious, but a lot of people are making minimum payments and hoping things get better. They won't. That 22% interest rate is a wealth destroyer. If you have multiple cards, attack the highest interest rate first and do not add to the balance under any circumstances. Treat it like an emergency because it is one. Second, build a real cash cushion. Not invested, not tied up, cash. Sitting somewhere accessible. Minimum 3 months of expenses. 6 is better. If something goes wrong, job loss, medical emergency, car breaks down, you need a buffer between you and complete financial crisis. Most Americans don't have this, and it's why one bad event can unravel years of work overnight. Third, get serious about your income. One income stream is a liability right now. It does not matter if your job feels stable today. We have watched too many people find out in an afternoon that the job they counted on for years was gone. You need to be developing a second skill, a second income source, something. It doesn't have to be a full business on day one. It just has to be something that produces money outside of your main job. Fourth, cut ruthlessly on things that don't matter and protect spending on things that do. This is where you get honest with yourself about subscriptions, dining out, impulse purchases. And I'm not saying never enjoy your life. I'm saying be intentional. Every dollar you redirect from something meaningless toward debt, payoff, or savings is a dollar working for your future security instead of against it. Fifth, pay attention. Seriously! The people who are going to come out of this period, okay, are the ones who saw it coming and adjusted early. Not the ones who buried their head and hoped the news would get better. Read, watch, stay informed. Because the decisions you make in the next 12 to 24 months are going to matter a lot more than most people realize. Look, I'm not here to scare you for the sake of it. I genuinely believe that people who are informed and prepared can navigate even rough economies and come out the other side in a stronger position than where they started. But you have to be honest about what's happening first. And what's happening right now is serious. The signs are not subtle anymore. They're everywhere. And the people who acknowledge that and act on it are going to be in a very different position 2 or 3 years from now than the ones who didn't. If this was useful to you, Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And go check out the video on screen right now because it ties directly into everything we just covered. I'll see you in the next one.